All government officials and employees are mandated to submit their statements of assets, liabilities, and net worth, or SALN, on April 30 this year. The Civil Service Commission announced new form which will be filled up truthfully and correctly. The Civil Service Commission Chairman Francisco Duque said the new form was the result of a series of consultations with various government offices and employee groups. It is simpler and guidelines have been provided on how to fill up the form. The SALN will continue to have indicators to determine illegally obtained wealth of every official and employee of government. And joining us tonight is Attorney Ariel Ronquillo, Assistant Commissioner of the Civil Service Commission. Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening, Robert.
Sir, how different is the new SALN form, or the Statement of Assets and Liabilities and Net Worth, from the old form?
Well, actually, if you will look at the form, you won't see much differences. But if you will look at the guidelines, a lot of differences can be seen. We have already addressed all the concerns raised during the orientation about the old forms. And we also saw to it that all the loopholes in the previous forms were already plugged in these new guidelines.
So how extensive were your consultations with government offices and employee groups?
Well, in the technical working group that we convened for purposes of revising the form, we invited around 14 representatives from 14 government agencies, and all of them contributed greatly. They shared their thoughts, their insights on what should be found in the SALN form. These agencies include, among others, the Department of Justice, the Department of Finance, the Office of the Ombudsman, the Commission on Audit. The independent unions are also represented. Well, among others, there are 14 other agencies. I'm sorry if I cannot mention the others.
So can you explain briefly why there was a need to actually change the form from the old form that was actually being used before?
Well, in the first place, before there was already a comment from a court, specifically the Sandigan Bayan, that the form is deficient, and they used that as a reason why a former general was acquitted of a perjury charge. According to the court, it's not the fault of the general that he failed to declare the properties which are exclusively owned by his wife, because the form actually does not require it. Well, we address that here now, because the form now specifically requires declaration of properties, even if these properties exclusively belong to the spouse of the declarant. Also, in the orientations that we made last year, when we launched the revised form, there were many concerns by the filers, because according to them, the guidelines are not clear. For example, it was not clear as to what will be the basis in determining the assessed value and the fair market value of the real properties to be declared. Now, in the new guidelines, we're saying that these values can be seen from the tax declaration. On other matters, they said, shall we declare foreign currency deposits in the banks? According to them, there is a law that protects the disclosure of these currencies. Well, in the new guidelines, we're saying here that yes, they have to disclose, although the declaration need not be in the foreign currency, because they have to convert that into Philippine peso using the exchange rate that's prevailing as of December 31 of the previous year, among others.
So therefore, sir, the deficiencies raised from the old form and the complexities of last year's form, have they all been addressed now?
Yes. Actually, in the revised form that we introduced, we were also asking for personal and family expenses, amount and sources of gross income, and income taxes paid, which were found to be too burdensome. Well, we removed all of them, but it doesn't mean that the form requires less honesty in the declaration of the filer. The form still requires that the filer will have to declare all his properties, whether real or personal, and all money, whether in hand or on hand or in the bank.
So how about the salaries, taxes, real estate? Will this include what a wife or husband earns, even if they are not working in government institutions?
Yes.
Will this be included also?
Yes,
Is that part of the form right now?
If they are spouses of a government official or employee, then these properties, even if they are exclusive to them, will have to be declared in the SALN.
So what other items in the SALN are deemed important? And so if there are any mistakes, can corrections be made?
Well, under the guidelines, if there are deficiencies in the SALN, the head of the agency is duty-bound to inform them about it, and they are given 30 days within which to correct those deficiencies. If after that period the deficiencies are still not corrected, then the filer can be deemed an offender.
So you have a compliance committee mandate. Will it determine wrong entries or non-compliance?
Well, the law simply requires looking at the timeliness of the submission, completeness in the filling up, and use of the proper form. However, the guidelines also said that misdeclaration in the form is also an offense. The problem is it will be very difficult as of this time to determine misdeclarations. However, if evidence surfaces that indeed the filer makes a misdeclaration in the form, then that misdeclaration itself can be considered as an administrative offense, on top of the fact that it will constitute perjury because that becomes a misrepresentation in a document that is executed under oath.
So now that we are in the technology age, are these forms, can this be filled up electronically or will this be filled up manually?
Well, the guideline says it can be filled up through the handwriting of the filer. It can be filled up through the use of the computer. It can be filled up through whatever means are possible.
So, and how are these stored, sir?
Well, hard copies are being stored in the repository agencies. For those who are being filed with us, we have a specific room where these forms are being stored, and I believe in the offices of the Ombudsman as well as in the office of the President, they also have the same space for the storage of the SALNs that are being filed with them.
So now that the CSC has come out with a simpler form, do you think it is easier now to determine if there's illegally acquired wealth by those who actually fill up the form?
Well, I think so, because through the use of the SALN, which is an instrument to track illegal wealth, accountability, and transparency, we can already determine if the government official or employee is living within his means, or if his lifestyle is in accordance with the salaries that he is getting from the government. So apparently, if what is stated in the SALN is very much disproportionate to the kind of lifestyle that he is in, then that will serve as a lead to the investigation of that particular government official or employee.
So if our people would like to secure the SALN of any official or employee, is this allowed? And if it is, what is the process?
Yes, it is allowed, but the agency is allowed also to provide their own guidelines on how to access the SALNs that are being stored with them. The minimum requirements is that they have to, anyone who wants to access any SALN will have to make a request, and in that request they have to state the purpose, and I think there is a payment of a minimal fee. If all these requirements are complied with, then they can have access to the SALN.
So do you think this new SALN will be an effective deterrent against corruption?
I think so, because the SALN requires no less than truthful and accurate reflection of all your assets, liabilities, and net worth, and this is being executed under oath. If you will lie in this SALN, you can be prosecuted administratively and criminally.
Okay, so there's still so many questions to be asked. Hopefully you can join us again and explain further to our people on how the SALN works against corruption. On that note, thank you very much for joining us tonight. That was Attorney Ariel Ronquillo, Assistant Commissioner of the Civil Service Commission. Thank you, sir. Thank you.